Good morning from Clipper Cove. We arrived here in the anchorage yesterday evening after our passage up the California coast and set the hook in 15 feet of water with a 5-to-1 scope. Then we settled in for the night at 7 p.m. and had a wonderful night of sleep. We've just been enjoying the morning and taking in the sights and really admiring how still the anchorage is, because it is basically protected from all angles, which is really cool. So it's kind of like being anchored on a big lake. As nice as it is to be on our boat, though, we haven't touched land in 3 days. So assuming that Cleo's gonna let me get up and do that, we are gonna go to shore and kind of get a lay of the land. Let's go.
So a useful tip my brother told me was to set a anchor marker or a trip line on your anchor. When you're anchoring in a lot of these really old bays, there's a lot of stuff in the bottom of them that you just can't see when you put the hook down. So when it's time to take the anchor up, you might get snagged on something like an old cable or an old chain or something like that. Not so good. So the answer to that is a trip line. Our trip line is a little funny looking. When we left Ventura, we didn't have a small buoy on board. So we had the soy sauce bottle that was empty, and we gave it a second life. We did write not trash on it because our first day at anchor, a group of kids on little sailing boats thought it was trash and tried to pick it up. But that's a second benefit of having a trip line or an anchor marker, is that it's super easy to tell people where your anchor's at. So when a new boater comes in and he's trying to set his hook somewhere, you can just say, it's right there, we have this much scope, and it's kind of clear and simple. So there's your anchor tip for the day.
Chris promised me my hair doesn't look stupid, so I'm trusting him on this. But anyways, today we're actually going to head over to the city because the ferry that leaves from Treasure Island is $10 round trip, which is amazing. So we're gonna go have a little city day, explore, and enjoy the bay. Painted Ladies, which was a very long walk up a hill. But it was gorgeous. It was nice to sit down in the park and look at the San Francisco skyline, as well as the Painted Ladies. So it was pretty cool. It's something I've always wanted to do, and Chris helped make it happen despite the long walk.
Yep.
He was a trooper.
Our knees are gonna give out, but it's pretty. So we're gonna go walk back down to the wharf now, and
I think we need beer.
I'm down for a beer.
Yeah. We are not used to wearing shoes all day, so the first chance we get to take them off, we do, and this feels amazing.
Where are we headed?
Hi! We are headed over to the Treasure Island Museum. I reached out to them because I thought it'd be a good opportunity to learn a little bit more about the area we're at, what the future looks like for this place, and just get a local's perspective. Because as much as Chris and I enjoy sharing things with you guys that we learn, I thought it'd be a little bit more useful and refreshing to get it from the source directly. So we're gonna load up the dinghy, head over there right now, shoot some video, and then take a walk around the island and reflect on what we've learned. Getting to shore at Clipper Cove is pretty much the easiest beach landing we have ever experienced. It's pretty much like a lake out there. There is a lot of construction going on, which, as you can hear, can kind of disrupt the peaceful serenity of the anchorage, but that's just what you get when you are anchoring in a city.
I'm Anna, and I'm the museum manager at Treasure Island Museum. Treasure Island itself is an artificial island built right after the Bay Bridge was constructed. And at that point, they were considering that Treasure Island would make a really good place for both a World's Fair as well as for a future airport for San Francisco.
Although the site was destined to become San Francisco International Airport, the Navy seized the island in 1942, shortly after World War II began. Pan American World Airways Clipper seaplane was commonly used at the time, using the water between the two islands as their port, for which Clipper Cove gained its name.
The Navy left in about 1997 and people started moving in around then. So since then, Treasure Island has slowly been developing into a new neighborhood, no longer being just used for naval purposes.
When Marissa and I walked along the island's perimeter on a clearly marked pedestrian path with an unmatched view of the Golden Gate Bridge and city, we were surprised to see that the island wasn't more developed. Given the jaws of capitalism and the growing housing crisis in the Bay, this spit of land seemed like an extremely underutilized opportunity. So what gives? After a little Google search, we discovered that although the Navy left the island in 1997, their messy legacy remained. Among other activities, the Navy had used the island to repair ships with deck markers painted with radium. For years, the Navy dumped radioactive material and other contaminants in large garbage pits that have been since developed over. We walked past the corner of Avenue E and 11th Street, where the Navy discarded used equipment and vessels in what they called the South Storage Yard. But today, that dumping ground is an elementary school yard. To date, the Navy's $285 million Treasure Island cleanup has unearthed concentrations of lead, dioxins, petroleum, and more than 1,000 radioactive items.
Despite that the past cannot be ignored, the island's dedication to improvement is admirable and worth celebrating. The island is in the beginning stages of a sustainably designed redevelopment project, which will create up to 8,000 residences, open space across 3/4 of Treasure Island and much of Yerba Buena Island, as well as create a mixed-use commercial center serving the island residents. The Clinton Climate Initiative designated the redevelopment plan as one of only 19 model climate-positive projects worldwide. It was awarded a LEED Indy Platinum certification, becoming only the 17th in the world to receive the highest designation possible for a green, sustainable development.
One of the things that Treasure Island is most notable for right now is for its views of San Francisco. Buses come by here all the time for people to get off and take pictures. But I hope in the future it will be also used for more than that for visitors. There's a ferry that takes people back and forth from San Francisco, and new businesses are growing on the island to make it sort of a destination for people. So yeah, I'm hopeful that it'll become a bustling hub soon. Let me know if you have any more questions. Sweating after doing this.
After our interview, Anna introduced us to Ada, who is an island resident, museum board member, and the Treasure Island Yacht Club Commodore, who was kind enough to take the time to chat with us about sailing in the bay and show us the club, where we happened to run into a familiar face. There is a common saying that cruising is just fixing things in exotic places, and although San Francisco is not what many would consider exotic, it is still known as the concrete jungle, and that's close enough for us.
Well, as you can tell, we're up on the bow right now. We got the sail right out, and we're gonna do a little mend on our sail. We put a big old hole in it on our way up here to San Francisco and patched it on the way, but it was definitely not something that I wanted to trust. So we got some other tape out right now. We're about to sew it in place. This isn't ideal because this machine only does straight stitching, but it's better than nothing. So it'll definitely get us through hopefully our Bay Area time, and then we can kind of reassess once we get back down to Southern California.
As we mended the sail, the Cove began to fill with members from the unofficial Washed Up Yacht Club, an eclectic group of sailors and boats that come together once a month to raft up at Clipper Cove. Funny enough, Chris's brother was one of the founders of the club way back when their boat Prism was still new to them, and since then, the club has tripled in size. We spent 8 days anchored in Clipper Cove, which was longer than expected, but all for good reasons. It was well protected, easy to get to shore, simple to get around, and overall a fun start to our cruising journey. It's time to move on to our next anchorage.
Still gotta put our dinghy up. So yesterday we were trying to leave about this time, but as soon as we were putting our dinghy on the deck, our engine stopped working. So I got to tear apart the entire fuel system. Found out we had a small leak in the pickup tube. It actually isn't even fixed, but I mended it slightly, so I don't think it's gonna be as big of an issue. So I'm gonna start pulling up our anchor.
Well, we pulled the hook and we are finally leaving Clipper Cove, which was home for the past week. So it's a great time exploring the island, a good place to really settle into cruising life. And Chris is back there. We're just trying to navigate out of the cut. The cut is what they call it, the very shallow swerve through so you don't get shoaled up. So yeah, bye Bay Bridge.
Right up there is our patch. Looks pretty good. Not bad. Patch is holding. It's great. It is a beautiful day on the bay. Look how beautiful that sail is. Gorgeous.
Next on Sailing Avocet.